Hello and welcome to the Holistic Pathway, unscripted conversations on mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship. A brand new video series where we dive deep into the holistic integration of life and business. I am Tammy Coyne, your holistic alchemist, helping you change pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose. Today's chat will be with Tammy Braswell. So Tammy is a two-time international best-selling author and is the vibrational goddess of Create by Vibration. She has been sensitive to energy, spirits, and unseen planes of existence since childhood. It is part of her daily experience to connect and communicate with higher energies, beings, and source, as well as committedly providing energy resets and vibrational upgrades for herself, her loved ones, and her clients daily. She understands how energy moves and our role in creating from the vibrational level we are at. The work she offers is a proprietary blend of all that she has studied, intuited, channeled, and experienced firsthand in her own life over her 54 years as the intuitive channel, high vibrational healer, Akashic record expert, energetic creation coach, and teacher and creator of new energy methods and techniques that she shares in her work. Her passion is to support women on their conscious spiritual journey to fully express and experience themselves as the divine beings they are, having the human experience their soul wants to have in this physical reality. She empowers women through her work to consciously create the life they desire while processing and healing the lower energies of their past, setting them free from the influence they've had in their life. So thank you for joining us, and let's start the conversation with Tammy. Hi, Tammy. Thanks so much for joining me. And it's kind of funny. We've only just met online. I think we met in a business group and never actually, this is our first time to see each other face to face. So how are you?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thank you for having me and chatting with me. I love chatting.
Yeah, I love it too. And yeah, and kind of my whole goal for this is for us to get some value out of it. And maybe we have just a great conversation. You never know what kind of profound things may come up that could benefit whoever is watching. So it sounded like from your bio that you just accumulated all kinds of interesting ways that you do your work. And so, how long have you actually been working as an entrepreneur doing this kind of work?
As an entrepreneur, as a whole, since about 2003, but it was about 2011 I started working with clients with energy work.
Okay, all right. Well, that's great. Now, do you find that you like working in person, or do you mainly work online? How does your work go for you?
It's all virtual now. It used to be in person, but we're all connected energetically, so it doesn't matter where you are. I have clients on the other side of the world, and that doesn't make any difference, time zones or continents. So I mean, energy is fun to play with, and that's who we are. So it's 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 easy to move. Especially, I feel when people aren't always in the physical with me, because then I really am tuned into just the deeper parts of them.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And I definitely am tuned into energy and know a lot about energy. But for those watching, I don't know, maybe give your definition of energy or how that shows up for you and how kind of that shows up when you're working with clients.
Well, I see it as that higher side of us,
Okay.
uh, the spiritual side, the soul side of us. That is the truth of who we are. So we're, living in this physical body is the manifestation of who we are energetically. And so there's so much more to life, and we get conditioned to only see what's here. And ever since I was a little kid, not thinking about it, I felt energy and spirits and and have had some interesting experiences throughout my life that as I got older, I realized they were not always on this physical plane. And so to me, that's the more normal part of the way of living. So when everybody comes forward and goes, I'm this and I'm that, and an empath, well, we're all empathic. That's how we read each other. We're all healers, and
Yeah,
we are all these things. It's just how much you cultivate or nurture them or pay attention to them that they grow.
absolutely. I was talking to someone about that the other day. It's kind of like, even if you're not aware of energy, if you've ever walked into a room and maybe didn't know anyone or didn't know the situation, and you start heading for a certain seat and you go, no, I think I'm going to go this way, so it's, I think, helpful for those who haven't yet tuned into the fact that they are energetic beings. They do have this ability and they're feeling this stuff all over the place. I'm currently in school, and I know one of the things that we work with, you can sit in meditation and close your eyes and actually feel where the magnetic energy you start to feel the pushback. And it's so much like, if you ever played with magnets as a child, and which side do they pull together, which side do they sort of repel, and that for me is a really good metaphor for this energy that we feel and experience.
Well, people don't think about it, but when you can feel when somebody sometimes comes up behind you,
Yeah.
or or you get a weird feeling about doing something or going somewhere, like you said, no, don't go over there. Or just, I mean, how often do we have a sense of what somebody else is feeling, especially if we're really connected to them? We can, even if they have a smile on their face, you can feel like they're not quite where that smile is, or just how we feel into people. And sometimes people talk about it like it's this magical thing, and that is us. That's who the truth. People always used to say ESP, extrasensory perception, is this the sixth sense. It's odd. No, although the higher senses are the truth, are who we are and how we function, they're then translated in the physical senses.
It is very interesting, and it's so interesting how many people have, because as children, we have such a more clear connection, I think. And then over time, whether it's through our own family or through society or school or church or the neighborhood or whatever it is, where we start shutting those parts of ourselves down and we become less familiar. It's like we forget that we had these abilities. And I think that's so interesting. I've a lot of the people that I love have transitioned in my life to the point where I have more people on the other side than I do on this side, and it's always interesting when someone visits me. We all have different gifts and different skills. I've had touches of clairvoyance and I've had touches of clairaudience. Those aren't my strongest gifts. Yet when someone I love shows up in the room around me, I may not see them, but I will feel them. I will know they're there. There will be something very distinct that I know who it is. And I think that's pretty fantastic. And then there are those who are more dialed in. And I love that. I bought my daughter an appointment with a medium one day, and I was explaining to her, before she went to the appointment, that you're not going to be seeing things, or they won't be seeing things like it's on a TV screen. It's just kind of flashes and different things, or they might get a symbol, or they might hear something, or everyone is going to have a different ability and how it comes through to them. And so a lot of times, as someone is going for something like that, they don't really know what to expect, you know. So are you working with mediumship, or are you doing things like Reiki? Like tell me a little bit more about what you do.
Well, all of my stuff is that's why I say it's a proprietary blend, because it's beyond the names you would give to things.
Right.
Um, Everything can happen in a moment, so I can even just kind of tune into somebody and think about it, helping them heal and have shifts happen without having to do all the symbols or theatrics, I call them.
Yeah,
And actually, I can voice channel, and if you know who Abraham Hicks is, Esther
I do.
Hicks. Okay, so I can voice channel like that. So being able to channel all that is, which is source energy, I can channel and communicate with everything from dead people um, to whatever wants to come through. And so when I'm working with clients, if somebody they need to do some healing work with, it's generally how it comes through for me.
Yeah.
Someone will come through. And interestingly enough, I feel the person. I've always felt it that way because I know a medium who was well known, and I went to her house for this like she was taking a class to learn a new way of communicating, and it was to have the spirit come, or this, soul, whatever, the person come into her, um, for her to feel it. And I thought, that's interesting. That's how I always just naturally do it. I mean, I can sense how big they are, if they have any characteristics, if they're laughing.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how to explain it, or I don't know if I could teach anybody to do these things, because it's always just worked that way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's interesting. People come to me and I don't always know who they are. Actually, I had a client who crossed over, and she came to me and I didn't know who it was. It wasn't real clear until I found out that she had passed over. And then I knew who it was. She knocked on my door. She was laughing. And I'm like, I know who this person is, but I don't know. I mean, it's not always real clear, especially if you're not,
Yeah.
it's like a phone call. You're calling
Mhm.
and asking, and not the person who you think might come through isn't always the one who answers the call either. So
For sure. You know what that brought to mind is, let's say in the mainstream world, let's say you're in a job or whatever, and you've got a coworker there that you're used to seeing on the job, and then all of a sudden you're out somewhere else and you see them. It's like you still know who they are, but it takes you a minute to recognize, because you're seeing them in a completely new way. And I see that as something that when spirits are coming through, if you've been used to seeing them in the physical plane and then all of a sudden they're coming through, you kind of have to get used to, oh, that's who's coming through.
or if you've never met them. If I have somebody come through for somebody else, I don't always know, and they don't necessarily announce. People, it's interesting what humans think they will say. They kind of assume you'll know who they are. They're not thinking about, oh, I have to tell you.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, and
I'll figure it out.
it's so interesting because the things that they come through, and there are mediums out there that use the term evidential.
Yep, yep, yeah, so
Evidential.
they say things about physics, the things that happen so that a person can understand. Physically,
Absolutely.
it's evidence, yeah.
And this reminds me, I've had lots of experiences of my own, and I've also had some readings and different things. A My very best friend of 33 years transitioned in 2019, and she had developed dementia and she was in memory care. And a friend of mine, actually, who is a prior client of mine, when we started working together, because my signature program is called Unboxing Your Authentic Self. A lot of times, people who come to me don't realize that they are on the verge of awakening. And so, part of what I'm doing is helping them figure out what obstacles or whatever are keeping them from getting to whatever it is they need. And in the process of our work together, they begin to awaken, which is what happened to her. And she was sort of testing out her medium skills on me one day, and she called me and she said, I think I have a message for you. Would you mind if I shared it? And I said, well, no, not at all, and she starts telling me, and she said, well, I think it may be Linda. And Linda was my best friend. And I said, okay. She said, I don't really understand this. She said, she's saying something about skin so soft. And I'm gonna hopefully don't get emotional from this, but we're raw and unscripted, so who knows what comes out. And I said, well, that's interesting. I said, she did used to sell, Avon, and they had a skin so soft product. And I said, maybe that was it. And then all of a sudden, this wave of emotion came over me. When I last saw her in memory care, I was sitting with her, and she was a bit childlike, and she was rubbing on my arm, and she said, your skin is so soft.
Yeah.
And so I said, there is nobody in the whole world that knew that conversation except she and I. And so, of course, for my friend who was, trying to get confident in these skills, that was quite a good confirmation for her as well. And so that's the thing. There are so many people who are afraid of things, and they're scared of things, or they think there's something beyond what they are. And to me, when you either can connect with those that have gone to the other side, or there's someone out there who can serve as a medium, an intermedia between you and your person, and give you that kind of information, I mean, what a gift that is.
I do it mostly now as just a plaything because it's really not part of the work that the vibrational work that I do. It used to come in when I was doing one-on-one, especially with clients who came in person, and we were doing a lot of healing work in that level. Now it's just a fun thing. I
Yeah.
did it for a friend, and he wanted his father and his brother to come through, and it was somebody else, and I gave him a name. That always is a shocker to me when names come through, because that's one of those specific things. Because even the mediums out there, you'll see it's a T. Is it a Ted? Is it a Tom? So when a
Right.
name comes through really clear, and I gave him all these details, and he's like, I have no idea who that is. And I said, well, I don't know. He's standing right here. And so he went and called a family member, and they're like, oh yeah, they confirmed his name and who he was. And I felt like he was not biologic, or like biologically connected, but they called him uncle. He was a
Yeah.
family friend who was an uncle, and one of his relatives confirmed it. And I said, I don't pick who. That was more evidence than your father or brother. If they
Yeah.
didn't come through, you might not would have believed it as much. But for me to get some abstract person that you didn't even know who it was to get confirmation, that shows you that I was obviously tuning into someone.
Absolutely.
So now I use
So,
it as a game, more as a game for people. Than,
yeah.
and it's not something I offer. I don't. Yeah.
Well, and I loved when you were talking about your work while ago, and you said, or doing the symbols kind of theatrics, and that's something that I've talked with people about. People get really excited about all these tools, like crystals and pendulums and this and cards and that and whatever. And I said, and that's fine and whatever, and I think you may find that you get to a point where you don't even use any of that stuff, because whatever it is naturally coming to you. And to me, at least what I've found on my own journey is a lot of those things are a little bit like training wheels. I mean, not to be dismissive, but it's I think they're just tools, and a lot of times people rely on these tools rather than what they're actually receiving.
Yeah, but it can also be like a doorway to give them confidence to, if they lay out the cards. I mean, I play with crystals, I'll hold them and things but I don't
Yeah.
use them for reading. I use them for the energy that they have. But I've never really been good at reading tarot cards because then I'm looking too much at the tarot card and what it could mean, and I just stop and everything just, flows through me, and I tell clients things and they'll be like, that thing you said in that order that you said it was going to happen. That just, and it shocks me because I don't know this stuff. It just comes through. So it's
Yeah.
always to me like, oh, that's really cool.
Well, and that's the thing I've said to people, what my primary gifts have shown up as is claircognizance and clairsentience. And so I just know things or I just sense things. And you know, intuition and those type of things play heavily into what I do, but my work, like yours, is very individual. It's very separate, and I oftentimes, when I'm working with individuals, usually with them, they have they feel like something is holding them back, and a lot of times it may be childhood wounds, it may be childhood trauma. They've gone to counseling, they've done this, they're like, I don't know why I can't get past this, like what's going on. And so the system that I use is one that came to me through my own journey, and it's not going to be like anyone else's. And that's what's so interesting about the gifts that we have, and being called into service to help other people get whatever it is that they need. What are people usually looking for when they reach out to you? Do they have kind of specific things that they're trying to get past or attempting to achieve when they reach out to you?
Well, I work mainly with women in my pretty much my age group, so I've had some experience of something that they're looking for anyway. And everything that I share is it's something I looked for, and then I'm guided to share it with others. So I attract women who um, are somewhere on their journey in the same way. So it's usually what have they come to me for? Sometimes they just hear something I'm talking about and they're guided to. It's all incorporated into the work I do. So I can go into other people's other lifetimes to find what might be still influencing this one, or they just, I talk about raising your frequency to
Hmm.
become what you want to match up to. Our
Yeah.
life is a reflection of the frequency we're on. If we want it to be different, we have to like change the station and raise our frequency. So talking from that place, they want something different in their life. And so they want to get to that other frequency. And to me, doing that is consciously aligning yourself with the vision of what you want, and getting clear on that, and then doing the healing work of whatever the lower frequencies are that show themselves that can't go into this new higher version of yourself.
Yeah.
It's lots of things that women come to me for, and they all end up knowing themselves in a deeper way and in a new way. That's like the back end of things that we don't think about.
Hmm.
We don't usually come and go, I want to change something or get more in tune with myself, but that's what we do, because as we shift, our whole life will shift from whatever shifts we make. So even if we focus, and I always focus on one thing,
Yeah.
and you change, so everything else starts to change. And
Absolutely. And this journey, I know mine really started out because my body started becoming so sick. And I ended up having all kinds of health diagnoses. And so that took me into the mind body connection. And that now is one of the main pathways of the work that I do, is helping people do that. And so it is very interesting because you never quite know what someone is actually looking for. Sometimes when people find me, they feel like they either feel like they're going crazy, they might say, or things are changing and I don't know what to do with that. Or they might say, um, I really can't explain what it is I want or what it is I need. I just know I'm not finding it, you know. So I know that's I find that most of the people, they get to a point of being so confused, they don't even know what they're searching for. They don't know the words that they're looking for, because what they need isn't something in the frequency that they're living in, or isn't in the world that they're living in. What they're looking for is outside of that. And so, but they don't even know that, so they don't even know where to search, you know. And thankfully, I mean, we do have places to search now, like Google or YouTube, which wasn't always the case, you know.
You can start to get an idea from there. Yeah, well, I've gotten to the place where my clients are more those who they've already done inner healing work, and they understand what their vibration is and why they want to raise it. So I used to uh, work with more women who were in more of like a desperate feeling energy, and that takes more time to move through because
Yeah,
it's heavier energy. So, and because of the things that I talk about from the level I talk about them, and the way that I can move energy, it's easier with those who have already experienced enough of that prior to coming to me.
right.
Yeah.
Well, so that's interesting. Did you go through what you would call an awakening, to where it felt like, you know, all of a sudden you knew things that you didn't know before, or your life changed in a way that you hadn't seen it before, you know?
Well, I can remember back to like 3 and 4 years old, and experiencing some of the things energetically that I do
Yeah,
still experience, but I didn't talk about it when I was a little kid. I knew deep down inside that it wasn't something I'd talk about with other people. And when I was 13, my parents got divorced. My mom and I moved into our own apartment, and her younger brother, who died when I was just before I turned 4, um, paid us a visit, and we experienced it together. And in that moment, then it made it so that I had someone to talk to, because we started talking about it and all the experiences she had throughout her life as well. And then, and it's everything is associated with my mom pretty much, but my mom's father, so my grandfather, had a massive stroke 2 days before my 17th birthday.
mm,
And then his body died or stopped functioning on my birthday. And my birthday's December 12th. So we went into like a Christmas break, the Christmas or holiday break at school. And for those 2 weeks, I didn't really eat, sleep, or drink anything. And I was a 17-year-old girl, and it wasn't really about how I was looking. I've come to know that that was another up level. So it wasn't really, I would say, an awakening, because I was already conscious of, but
yeah,
death took me to a heightened level of spirit contact and energy. I mean, I used to sit on the floor, my hair would be pulled up in the air, and things
mm,
like that. It was like I couldn't sit anywhere that something couldn't touch me.
yeah.
And so that would be an up leveling. And part of, I suppose, why I wasn't consuming anything was it was some kind of,
Purification.
yeah. And
Mhm.
people thought I was like having an eating disorder, but I didn't feel that way. And then
Yeah,
then all of a sudden it just felt like it was done, and I was done with it. And that was it. And everything accelerated from there. And even in 2023, just last February of last year, um, a power went out for 6 days in winter. I live in Michigan, and that was 6 very interesting days. I went through like physical changes, because the house felt like a refrigerator for
yeah,
6 days, and uh, just how I tuned into things, because there was nothing I couldn't get on the computer, I couldn't do anything,
mhm,
and I knew what that was, and it was very more conscious than when I was even younger. So it was quite interesting to experience that. And oddly enough, my power always usually comes on immediately after it goes out. And we actually got down my block itself, and I always thought I should go apologize to the neighbors because
Mhm.
it was about me. Literally my block was the only one that still didn't have power when everything else. So it was up leveling for
You
me.
know, it's so interesting too, because once you start recognizing what's happening to you, at least this was for me. I often say that my spiritual awakening was in 2014. I call that the big one. Well, the thing is, there had been multiple other ones throughout my life, but I wasn't conscious of what was happening. Like I knew what I was experiencing, but I didn't really understand what it was necessarily. And I had periods to where it's like I was awake, asleep, awake, asleep, awake, asleep. That's the best way I can describe it. And then after 2014 happened, it is a definite feeling of my life before, my life after. And after that, there have been multiple up levels, ascensions, whatever you want to call it, that might have created physical shifts in my body. There have been lots of experiences that, yes, would be very difficult to explain, especially for someone to receive or interpret who might be watching the conversation. But they are, and you go through so many different things. And then if you're older, like I was when a lot of this started happening, I can go back and look at things that happened in my life that I might call, I don't know, initiations, maybe for lack of a better word, things that were happening to prepare me for the work that I'm to do now. And I had a conversation, another one of these conversations where we talked a little bit about the work you're called in to do. One of the things that instructions I was given was to be a lighthouse for the lighthouses. Well, that took me a long time, and I'm still kind of dialing that one in to figure out exactly like, all right, what exactly does that mean? Because I understood what I was doing over here, but now is kind of a new piece, a newer piece. And so it is interesting, this journey, as you start to more things about yourself start to be revealed, more things about your path starts to be revealed, about your gifts starts to be revealed, and they're absolutely so unique to you. And that, I think, is one of the most powerful things that we have. And we also talked about this, is that there's really just no competition. There just really isn't competition, because what you do and what your clients need you for isn't going to be like anyone else, and they're not going to be able to go to Susie Q down the street and get the same thing that they can get from you. Like they're specifically needing something on their path that can only come from you.
Oh, and it's like you said that you focus on your clients are those who are awakening, are
Mhm.
coming into like becoming more conscious and aware. That's it. I mean, that's it. It's when we become conscious and aware. Even people make enlightenment sound like it's way out here, but to me, enlighten is to like turn the light on, and when the light comes on, you're like, oh, I see so much more than I saw before. There you go. So even the people that you work with could ultimately one day come to me because now they are awake, and
Mhm.
what I'm saying makes more sense,
Absolutely.
and they resonate with it differently.
I have found that part of what I was called to do is to empower, motivate, inspire, and transform the lives of others using the stories of my life. And so there are so many stories that I've gone through. There are so many things. And it's like different people resonate with different things that I'm saying, but yet they all sort of end up in the same place. And what I've found is that all of my people are here with a bigger purpose, yet they don't always know that. And one of the ways that I describe that is to put it in a way that people can better understand, as I said, you know how there are caterpillars. Well, imagine that we're all caterpillars. Not all of the caterpillars came to become butterflies, but some of the caterpillars are here to become butterflies. Some of them go through that process and they don't make it. And some of them go through that process and they become butterflies. No shade to the caterpillars, but you are a butterfly, you know? And so sometimes that's what it helps people realize. Okay, so everything I'm feeling, there really is a reason to it. I'm not losing my mind. I really am here doing something else, and it is painful going through, call it ego death, call it transition, call it transformation, whatever you want to call it, to go from caterpillar to butterfly is a really big transition.
Well, what I call it, what I've come to know instead is because we can bring our ego, which to me is the human side of us, along and it'll play along perfectly fine. And but It's that incorporation of that spiritual and the human. And with our conditioning, we focused on the human. And
Yeah,
then we get all excited because we find out about the spiritual. And then when we can bring the two together and
yeah,
live this through the physical, that's what our soul wants. That's why it chose to come here. And so, because actually I went to a butterfly garden last year and she was explaining about, that the eyes and I think it's the legs of the caterpillar actually become gelatinous and then change as it becomes the butterfly. So the caterpillar doesn't disappear, it gets incorporated into
yeah.
the thing that becomes the butterfly. So it's all still there. So, we've lived so long thinking we're only here, and then we start to find out we're here, and then the two play well together.
100%. And I know, and this is the other thing, what is challenging for people, again, that I work with to understand is that there is this evolutionary thing that they're going through, and that sometimes it does take a bit for the integration piece to happen. And mainly, there are a lot of roles and a lot of identities that you have picked up and gathered along the way on your human experience. And for me, some of those were really, really hard to unbecome. It took a little bit longer to unbecome the thinking or the mindset or the belief sets around this particular thing in order to reach the next level of where I needed to go. And I think that's the part, because once you make it to the other side of that, it's like, yes, I know those things, but for people who are not yet there, it can be very scary and very painful. And oftentimes you feel very sick. You may even feel like you have some sort of flu, because you're going through all of these different phases. And part of what we work together on, that mind body connection part, is understanding what the symbols of their body, or what the symptoms of their body are actually showing them, what it's actually pointing to. And it can be a lot for people to understand what's going on. I just think it's so valuable, because I had no idea what was happening to me. And with what was going on with you at such a young age, I mean, it wasn't like, again, you could just hop on the internet and do a Google search. I mean,
Even as a teenager, to look at, I've always had a connection to other lifetimes and didn't realize it.
yeah,
Reincarnation, I don't call it that anymore, but that was what books were on. So I went to the library, went to the little file deck and found like 3 books and read the 3 books that were in the library. Unlike if you Google it now and websites pop up all over the
right.
place. I did it the old fashioned way. And yeah, and I used to buy crystals that were huge for like $1 before everybody else was buying them. Now, those would be like
Yeah.
$50 for the one I used to get for $1 because nobody else was buying them.
Right. I know. And that's one of the things I've talked to people too about, also learning discernment, because there are a lot of people out there that jumped on the spiritual bandwagon. Sometimes I call these people spiritual Susie and spiritual Steve. And what I mean by that is it's kind of like, oh, I'm spiritual and I got the t-shirt, and yet there's not really anything underneath that. It's a facade. And for people to really understand how to discern someone who is actually bringing them something that's beneficial for them versus something that's just there um, as a way to make a dollar.
Well, I used to, when I was younger, I went to psychics.
Yeah.
And, I don't call myself psychic. I am technically, but I just saw it intuitively. But I used to go to them, and they were always overweight, broke, and sick. And I was like, one, I believe they took on other people's energy and didn't know how to,
Clear
um,
it.
yeah, be conscious of theirs and theirs and theirs. And but there was no I focus a lot on the healing, the whatever there is that's the block or the stuck point or the lower energy that's going to come up. um and it felt like they would just tell you stuff, and I have nothing, I mean, I liked listening to it and I invested in it many a time.
Mhm.
But yeah, now everybody's, I'm tuned in, and but again, we can go back to like the frequency someone's on, and then they're going to be attracted from that frequency to certain level of information. I mean, there's still fear-based stuff out there that
So
shocks
much.
me, on telling people things spiritually and having them be in a fearful place. And it's like, oh, I mean, I'm not going to judge it, because if somebody's following that person, then that's still in their energy. So there's a evolution there and a growth in there. But yeah, it's interesting to watch what's out there. And I laugh because this has just been the way I've lived my entire life. And now everybody's waking up going, I've been doing this for like 3 years. I'm like, I'm 54. I've been doing it. I know since I was 4. So like 50
Yeah.
years.
Well, and that's so true. There's yeah, I've met so many people who um say that they're spiritual, and yet it seems to be for show. They're When you begin to have a conversation with them, what they're showing out here is not what they're living, is not what they're living behind the scenes.
But
And
everybody has a different understanding of what that means. And I
yeah,
like that, so when I teach anything, I talk about it from my context of understanding at this point. So
yeah,
it makes sense, because words are thrown, manifesting and awakening, and all these words are just thrown all over the place. And then people think they understand what that word means. And from what they heard from another person, okay, but I like to explain everything is frequency. There's a low frequency to words, there's a high frequency to words. I mean, you can give me a word and I can tell you like different meanings of it vibrationally.
yeah.
So it again, I think it's just their level of understanding, because you can go into religions and how many people, the Tammy and Jimmy Baker. I mean, what they presented and then what everybody found out they were doing behind the scenes. My
Absolutely.
whole thing is to live in integrity of your vibration and your energy. It doesn't matter what anybody else in this world knows about you or believes about you. Your energy is what, and your frequency is what creates your life. So you have to be truthful to yourself, and it doesn't matter what anybody else believes. And your energy will actually precede you in
Yeah.
what people feel and know about you. So to start to understand how to tune into yourself, and you're going to attract to you that which you are. So if you're being a little whatever shady back here, then you're likely to attract some shady people out there. So it's, pay
Yeah.
attention to what's showing up for you. That's indicating what you're where you also are.
For sure. And that I know I did a video recently about different types of fear. And one of them is around discernment, around being able to know yourself well enough that you can make a determination for yourself. This is okay for me. This is not okay for me. And looking at it from a place of, I had talked about fear in this video. Like, is it something that's uncomfortable for you because you haven't done it before. And I often use, speaking on stage, because speaking in public is a fear for people. Is it something because, oh, that's uncomfortable for me? Is that what you're feeling? Or is it like someone's got a weapon to your head in an alley? That's actual fear, right? These are different kinds of things. Or is it something you're like, I feel a pause. I'm not sure what this is, but I'm not sure this is right for me. That's when it's time for you to connect with yourself and find out, is this a direction I want to go or not? And being able to determine what you're actually feeling so that you can make that decision for yourself and what is in integrity for you and for your life.
And I think though, that, like our conditioning,
Yes.
the world itself and the higher ups in the world like to elicit fear in us,
Yes.
be afraid of everything. And so a lot of energy is we do things out of desperation and fear and worry. And so it's like stepping back and feeling into, am I in a place of fear of this in this situation, or can I come from a place of, and I talk the highest frequency is love and appreciation. So am I feeling love in this place? You can't feel both at the same time. They both exist at the same time, but you can't be in love and be like panicking. So, I'll direct people to think about, are you coming from this place of love in your heart for whatever the experience is or what you're stepping into, if you love it, or if it's like a desperate need. And I used to have clients that, like I said, years back, who would come and they needed something like that. And so I moved up from from looking or attracting those who felt like they were in that energy. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's so good and such an important point for people to really understand how valuable energy is, what it's showing them, what it's it's such a guide for so many things if they can stop the noise long enough to really be able to tune into what is going on with them. And sometimes they don't even know um their world. Sometimes, at least a lot of people just in the world in general, their world is so busy that they don't know what it means to just be in connection with their self and or themselves and the higher self, to be able to feel what it is that they're needing to experience. It's right there, you know.
and it's like it's and I explain it like exercising. It is building a muscle. It's reconditioning the old what you have conditioned. So if
Yeah.
you go into a gym and come out with a six pack, it won't happen the first time you walk into a gym unless you walked in with the six pack, right? So you're gonna go in and you're gonna keep doing whatever exercises to start to tone your body and to change your body. So it's the same thing energetically, and tuning into ourselves is noticing when we're in a place of fear is, what is that fear of? Is it
Yeah.
of an actual thing, like you said, like, I'm about to get hit by a truck? Or is it a perceived fear of something that could happen? Because really, like 99% of anything we ever fear that way doesn't usually even happen.
True.
It's when we're thinking about something that's happened in the past or the future is where we get into all those doubts and worries and panicking. And so, yeah, it's just finding ways to dial back in whatever that is for you and whoever you want to receive, the teachings of or whatever, to,
Yeah.
to find that place where you come back and go, wait a minute. I like the why of life. Like, why do I believe this? Why am I doing this? Why is this? And if you keep asking yourself, well, why do I feel this way? Why am I making this choice? And start to tune in and get your answers, then you're like, wait a minute, yeah, I don't want to make that choice. That doesn't feel really good, but I wasn't paying attention to that.
Absolutely. And for a lot of the people I work with, I ask them not to use the word why. I was previously an analyst and using why, like the five 5 levels of why or whatever is kind of an analyst sort of a tool that you use. And a lot of times people that I may work with may be carrying a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. And sometimes if they use why in the wrong tone or it comes out, it's almost like a judgment. So I have them replace it with what. And I say, I wonder what is blah, blah, blah. I wonder what is coming from this. I wonder what is creating this feeling of anxiety around this. I wonder what is causing me to be interested in what this person has to say, and using it. And it seems like it helps to, for those that are still working with getting through old guilt and old judgment and old shame and that kind of stuff. It gives them a way to do self-inquiry without it feeling like they're judging themselves for a particular situation.
I
So
talk a lot from the what and why places. The what is the thought of things, and the
yes,
why is the feeling or the emotion that's connected to it. So the why
nice.
do I when we consciously create what we want, we get the what is the vision, and then
Mhm.
we drop it down into our heart, and the why you want to be the love of whatever that is. And if it's
Yeah,
anything other than that, then question why do you want it in the first place?
yeah. Well, absolutely. And also understanding it's like, and I may also talk with them, about your why, like your bigger reason, your bigger, the thing that's driving you, the thing that makes it all important. So, wow, what an amazing conversation we've had, Tammy. I think we're coming up on the end of our time. I've enjoyed our talk quite a lot. Is there anything else you would like to share, or you would like anyone to know?
Um, I think we are coming to a time where we are being able to more easily see what's true for us, and tuning into that. I find that a lot more people are looking inward instead of outward, because everything is created through us, and not we've been taught that everything happens out here and then we decide how we're going to
Right.
feel about it. But if we start feeling the way we want to feel about things, then life changes out there.
Yeah.
That little hamster wheel is the feeling what you think you should feel from out there, so we can change that. And
Yeah.
I fully believe in receiving support, finding mentors or coaches or healers or whatever it is to help with that, because they teach DIY, do it yourself, but if we were really meant to do all this by ourselves, there would be no information and there would be no other people here. We'd just be like sitting on some mountain figuring it out. Right?
Well, absolutely. And what I found on my journey is if I wasn't able to find the solution that I was looking for, it's because there was a missing piece. And I wasn't able, it's like I was looking at things through this, and the piece I needed was over here. And sometimes that takes me working with a coach or working with a teacher or working with someone else that can help me connect to these pieces that I haven't been able to find on my own.
A powerful reason for that is we are too emotionally attached to our stuff. So you bring
Yeah,
somebody in who's not attached to it, they can see things like I can see for other people much more quickly. I can tell you what's blocking whatever or what we want to shift, and see where things came from, because
yeah,
I'm not emotionally attached to that person in the way that,
absolutely.
but sometimes in our own stuff, because people will laugh at me and they'll go, well, aren't you into it? Hey, I'm much quicker moving through things now, but I'll even tell you, I'm too emotionally attached to it. I can't see.
Well, and that's the thing. And it's again, being, intuitive or being psychic doesn't mean you have every possible answer. Like there are other circumstances, it's not like you've got your big, encyclopedia and you go, oh, well, here's the answer. It just it doesn't work that
Well,
way.
the answers wouldn't fit in a book anyways,
They
because
wouldn't.
it's limitless. Um, so yeah. And so I would say that having support, knowing what it was like for probably the first almost 20 years of my life,
Yeah.
navigating things that most people were not talking about it. You know, I
Yeah.
watched all those TV shows like In Search of, and that's incredible in the 70s
Yeah.
because I was like, oh, they get it. Or even the Twilight Zone. Rod Serling knew this stuff. That's all his
He
own
did.
stories.
Yeah. So good. So good. Well, thank you so much for hanging out and having a conversation with me, Tammy. I really appreciate it. And for those of you watching, please join us again for the Holistic Pathway, where we're doing unscripted conversations about all things holistic, mind, body, spirit, and entrepreneurship. And thank you so much for watching. I am Tammy Coyne, your holistic alchemist, helping you change pain into possibilities and possibilities into purpose. See you next time. Bye-bye.